Welcome back to BetQL Daily, presented by BetMGM. Aaron Hawksworth and PJ Glasser with you, and joining us now is Rick Camp of 4for4 and BetSperts. So excited, Rick, that the NBA is back. It's been a tough week for your girl. Just like, okay, can we end the All-Star break already? I really haven't been betting as much as I normally do because of the All-Star break, but I'm excited. We've got some action tonight. Before we look at tonight's card, let's look big picture, some futures. With the trade deadline, we saw some movement. Where might you be looking? Where is there some value in the NBA futures market?
One that I bet yesterday that is at BetMGM is who's going to have the most losses on the season. So essentially who has those number one pick odds and who's the best tanker. And for me, I bet the San Antonio Spurs were the second favorite at plus 150, just because they've shown this year that they're already committed to the tank. I understand that Houston has one more game that they could lose at this point, but Houston also does have more talent than San Antonio, and San Antonio has already done weird things like have Keldon Johnson come off the bench for a while. They're already pretty well committed to a lot of their guys that are still playing, not really playing much. Like tonight, you can just look at what they have, and there's a lot of guys that are already out. So I feel like they're all in for Wembanyama and already have that strategy, and they have the same amount of losses as Houston. So I like that one. And the other one that I've been really bullish on lately is Oklahoma City to make the play-in is plus 240 that I got it at. And I understand, because if you just took their profile and took the team name off of it, there's no way the odds would be this, because since January 1st, they have a +8 net rating. Like, they're the third best net rating in the NBA. They are 3 games ahead of the Lakers in the loss column, 2 games ahead of Portland in the loss column. Utah is trying to tank their way down. So they have that type of advantage. With Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and some of their guys showing what they have, I really don't think they're going to value a tank, because at this point, how far could they realistically tank? Because you're not going to have Shai be out for the rest of this season. So them to still make the play-in when they're in already and have that type of advantage, and they have a schedule that's easier than the Lakers the rest of the way, I think Oklahoma City's got value on it. So those are a couple that I really liked so far. And being in Chicago, the Bulls under 36.5 wins is something that I like as well, just because I don't trust this team. Patrick Beverley is a competent player, but he's not going to really change their fortunes very much. And they've got a West Coast trip to go. They would need to go, I believe, like 11-12 the rest of the way to be able to hit that over. And I just do not trust this team to do that.
Rick, what about either in the East or the West? Obviously with the big trades that were made in the West with KD to the Suns, Kyrie to the Mavs, maybe you haven't placed a bet on it, but do you know who you would like at this point to be the representative out of the West, out of the Eastern Conference for the finals? Or do you see value maybe like in the Pelicans or the Warriors maybe, or even Cleveland in the East? Like, what teams are you kind of backing here?
I've got positions preseason on Denver 20 to 1 to win the title. I was lucky to be one of the people, like being in the Central Time Zone when that Kevin Durant trade happened. I was about to go to bed when I saw the trade break, and there was one of the books that was a little slow on the trigger to pull the Suns numbers, so I was able to get 8 to 1 to win the West, 20 to 1 to win the title. So obviously, if either of those teams, which I think are the 2 most likely teams to come out of the West, make it to the finals, maybe I hedge in that regard. And I had 4 to 1 for Phoenix to win the division, anticipating Devin Booker coming back. So I would very much like the Suns to do very well this year. But I also really like Milwaukee. And if I had to pick someone that's outside of those top 4 to maybe win their conference, I think there is some value on Cleveland of anybody.
Yes.
I do value Philly somewhat, but Cleveland, if they get that 4-5 matchup, they're going to have the easiest first round matchup. Well, maybe not the easiest, but just I don't know. I don't necessarily trust what's going on below them. I just think it's going to be those top 4 with a bullet, and I think they can match up okay against Boston to the point where they could give them a series. But I still think the title winner is going to come out of those top 2 teams in each conference that everybody's perceiving at this point in terms of Boston, Milwaukee, Denver, and Phoenix.
I just can't seem to figure out what I want to do with this Clippers team. They disappointed me last season. I had some future. So, personally, I know you're not supposed to bet with your emotions, but I just decided to stay away. But do you think they could go on a run, and do some damage come playoff time?
I absolutely thought so before the Russell Westbrook move, and obviously it's subject to change because Ty Lue's saying what he has to say right now. I'm going to let Russ be Russ and whatever. But they were really putting something together with Terrence Mann as the fifth starter, letting him just basically bring the ball up, take a small amount of the ball, the responsibility of just bringing the ball up away from Paul George and Kawhi. And he's an athletic dude that's a good cutter that really provides a lot of what they don't have in a lot of their lineup. I'm also selfishly against the Russell Westbrook move because I have Norm Powell 30-1 preseason to win sixth man and 50-1 midseason to win sixth man. So that was looking really good. But now that Terrence Mann is pushed back to the bench, along with Bones Highland, along with Aaron Gordon, along with Nick Batum, there's just a lot of mouths to feed on their second unit. So I don't know that the shot volume is going to be there for Norm Powell. So sixth man, I think it's really looking like Malcolm Brogdon at this point, which is no fun. But until I see the Clippers, I'm not doing anything with the Clippers because I've wanted them to be good the last few years, just like you, and they've disappointed. So I just need to see what it looks like first.
Another future market, Rick, that Aaron and I have talked about. Mike Brown is plus 250 right now in BetMGM to win Coach of the Year. Missoula's the favorite, but he inherited a team that made the NBA Finals last year, and I know he's done a good job, but Kings haven't been in the postseason forever. Mike Brown's done a great job. Are you surprised that Missoula is the favorite in the Coach of the Year race right now?
The only reason I'm not is because of how the Celtics have played. They've switched up how they play a little bit. Dealing with some of the injuries they had, Udoka's system where they were really taking off was based so much on Robert Williams being able to, be a guy that roams around and be able to essentially play like a Giannis or Jaren Jackson role of weak side rim protector. And not having him to start the year, they had to become more of an offensive team. Missoula got them to push. They've emphasized threes a little bit more. And their offense has been fantastic as a result for a vast majority of the season. So they've been a little bit more offensive versus defensive. Now, I think actually Missoula should probably be a little bit more of a favorite but that's more because I think it's Missoula and Brown and nobody else at this point. I just think it's those two guys.
Yeah.
Michael Malone at 3-1, I disagree with completely because Jokic is getting the credit for what they're doing by likely winning another MVP. So I really like the either Missoula or Brown. And the thing that worries me about Mike Brown is that I think there's a very decent chance that Sacramento falls down the standings a little bit towards the end of the year. If they stay at the 3, if you told me at the end of the season they're the 3 seed, okay, then I'm with you. But I think they're probably going to be 5 and maybe even 6. So just with that recency bias down the stretch, even though I think he has done a fantastic job, I think it will end up going to Missoula, who is still, even with all the weird Udoka stuff happening as late as it did, that them being the 1 seed in the East in all likelihood is going to earn him that spot.
Let's look at tonight's card. I know there's several props that you really like. Let's start with Embiid. What are you expecting out of him?
Well, for Memphis, since Steven Adams has gone out of the lineup, they've been pretty brutal on the boards, whether it's been Xavier Tillman or Brandon Clark starting in the middle. 27th in offensive rebound rate and 27th in defensive rebound rate since Adams has gone out of the lineup. So I like Joel Embiid over 11.5 boards. Embiid maybe hasn't been the most consistent on the glass, but considering the size advantage he's going to have and the fact that Philly's starting to play a little bit smaller more often, so there's not as many mouths to feed on the glass, I think that really works to his advantage. So, yeah, Embiid to control the glass against Memphis, and knowing that Memphis is a team that's good enough to keep it close so that Embiid should get his full allotment of minutes as well, is something that I really like.
What about Jason Tatum, Rick? I know you have a prop on him that you like tonight.
Yeah, and it scares me a little bit with him coming off of the All-Star Game MVP and all that stuff, but I'm going over 29.5 points just because defenders that give Tatum issues are generally ones that have more length. And when you look at who Indiana has, what's it going to be, Buddy Hield or Aaron Nesmith that are probably going to be guarding him? And, Indiana's just a small team. They don't have a traditional 4, and even with Robert Williams back, the Celtics fully healthy, Marcus Smart, how much is he really going to want to shoot first game back? Jaylen Brown is going to be fine, but that also means the Indiana defense is going to have to they're going to have to stay true to Jaylen Brown. So whether he's starting at the 3 with Horford and Williams starting, or he's starting at the 4 with one of those bigs starting and one coming off the bench, who's going to truly bother him? And in their first matchup this year, he had 41 points. So while it was pretty significantly earlier in the season, it was still when Indiana was starting this lineup, and it wasn't when they were trying to make Jalen Smith happen. So that's something that I really like that one for Tatum, even if it is maybe a little counterintuitive to first game out of the break after having such a productive All-Star weekend.
This Golden State plus 5.5 at the Lakers tonight is intriguing. I don't know what to make of it. I was thinking maybe I should just live bet it and see how this goes, because we heard LeBron saying, oh, these next games are the most important of my career. So, are they going to go on a run? I don't know. Kind of like the Clippers. I'll believe it when I see it, so I may stay away. Are there any props that you like in this one?
Yeah, another thing with Golden State, outside of Curry, Andrew Wiggins is out this game. So with Darvin Ham saying the Lakers are going to start Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt, that means LeBron's going to be at the 3, which means he's going to have the size advantage. He does over most threes, but instead of it being someone like Andrew Wiggins, it's going to be maybe Dante DiVincenzo or Klay Thompson trying to slow him down. And with him already having that record, I think LeBron's going to try and get his, but I think he also wants to integrate these pieces a little more. So D'Angelo Russell over 2.5 threes is a prop that I like a lot, because with Vanderbilt starting at the 4 with Anthony Davis in the middle, when you're looking for the spacing and the 3-point shooting, it's pretty much going to be Beasley and Russell bombs away. So those are the guys that have to provide that spacing and keep defenses honest and give Anthony Davis that space on the inside. So I think LeBron's going to be really set on, getting his own, but also integrating everybody into the offense. And Russell has only gone over this in one of the 3 games he's played so far, but the lineup has been weird with LeBron being out. And he's been a quality 3-point shooter, so he doesn't need the most attempts in the world to be able to go over this. And when it's plus money, I'm going to be here for it.
Rick, you're so good at player props. I'm just curious, what's your process? Do you look at the teams playing, and then do you pick players based off of that and matchups, or do you monitor certain players and see if you can get a favorable spot? What usually is the go-to for you?
It's a really lame answer, but it really does all depend. It depends on the player. Like for D'Angelo Russell, as an example in this one, it's the fact that the Lakers need spacing, they need shooting. That was really one of the only reasons they were willing to take him on, is to get someone that can shoot. And it's also, in this specific case, it is projection, because we haven't seen much of these guys, of this group together. But knowing that Beasley's going to shoot, knowing that LeBron saying what he has said, and just knowing how LeBron works when there's new guys, he does want to integrate them. Russell's probably going to be a secondary creator for them as well, so he is going to have the ball in his hands. So if he's able to cross someone up and be able to hit a step back as well, he's shown he's able to do that. And also, if he hits his first one, he's also a guy that part of the reason Minnesota wanted to get rid of him is he'll take a lot of them. So he's a guy that won't have the ball in his hands as much as he did in Minnesota, but still, he gets up a good amount of attempts. And even off the dribble, he shoots the ball respectably. So whether he's creating his own 3-point opportunity or he's getting set up by the best creator he's ever played with, honestly, then I think he's going to have more of a catch and shoot opportunity than he's had, anytime recently.
What about your handicapping, the first game back after the All-Star break? Are guys rested and refreshed, or maybe they just got a little too comfortable and come out a little rusty?
It's tough. It's a lot of guessing, to be perfectly honest with you. And just, especially with as many players as changed teams, you're also projecting roles, but that also, in theory, if you have a decent idea of what the existing players need, or if you know what the coaches and the rest of the team is looking for out of someone that's new, you can maybe try and project. And while there's more ambiguity, that also means it's likely that way for the books as well. So if you have conviction on anything, then, there might be a little bit of wiggle room, which, for me, that's with Russell. Has he shown it in his 3 games? Not necessarily. He has 3, 5, and 8 attempts from deep, but I do think with LeBron back and, having some time to practice ahead of time, even though practice is kind of whatever it is at this point of an NBA season, being able to get your ducks in a row just a little bit should help. And when I'm looking at, okay, how can the Lakers minimize what type of damage D'Angelo Russell can do? I think using him as a spot-up guy with LeBron being the responsible ball handler is probably the best way to do it, because Malik Beasley is much more of your running around screens guy, where D'Angelo Russell, if you think of the shape of an offense, he's generally your guy floating above the break just to try and create space. Maybe he's the one that gives some entry passes to Anthony Davis, and maybe every once in a while Anthony Davis actually passes out, and while they're digging down on him, Russell can maybe hit a three.